All living organisms need nutrients to survive. Animals obtain their nutrients by the consumption of other organisms. At the cellular level, the biological molecules necessary for animal function are amino acids, lipid molecules, nucleotides, and simple sugars. However, the food consumed consists of protein, fat, and complex carbohydrates. Animals must convert these macromolecules into the simple molecules required for maintaining cellular function. The conversion of the food consumed to the nutrients required is a multi-step process involving digestion and absorption. During digestion, food particles are broken down to smaller components, which are later absorbed by the body. This happens by both physical means, such as chewing, and by chemical means. The learning objectives for these lessons are to explain the process of digestion and absorption, to explain the specialized functions of the organs involved in processing food in the body, to describe the ways in which organs work together to digest food and absorb nutrients, to describe the essential nutrients required for cellular function that cannot be synthesized by animal body, to describe how excess carbohydrates and energy are stored in the body. The process of digestion begins in the mouth with the intake of food. The teeth play an important role in masticating or chewing or physically breaking food into smaller particles. The enzymes present in saliva also begin to chemically break down food. The food is then swallowed and enters the esophagus, a long tube that connects the mouth to the stomach. Using peristalsis or wave-like smooth muscle contractions, the muscles of the esophagus push the food toward the stomach. The stomach contents are extremely acidic, with a pH between 1.5 and 2.5. This acidity kills microorganisms, breaks down food tissues, and activates digestive enzymes. Further breakdown of food takes place in the small intestine, where bile produced by the liver and enzymes produced by the small intestine and the pancreas continue the process of digestion. The smaller molecules are absorbed into the bloodstream through the epithelial cells lining the walls of the small intestine. The waste material travels onto the large intestine, where water is absorbed and the dried waste materials is compacted into feces. It is stored until excreted through the anus. Both physical and chemical digestion begin in the mouth or oral cavity, which is the point of entry of food into the digestive system. The food is broken into smaller particles by mastication, the chewing action of the teeth. All mammals have teeth and can chew their food to begin the process of physically breaking it down into smaller particles. The chemical process of digestion begins during chewing as food mixes with saliva produced by the salivary glands. Saliva contains mucus that moistens food and buffers the pH of the food. Saliva also contains lysozyme, which has antibacterial action. It also contains an enzyme called salivary amylase that begins the process of converting starches in the food into a disaccharide called maltose. Another enzyme called lipase is produced by cells in the tongue to break down fats. The chewing and wetting action provided by the teeth and saliva prepare the food into a mass called the bolus for swallowing. The tongue helps in swallowing, moving the bolus from the mouth into the pharynx. The pharynx opens into two passageways, the esophagus and the trachea. The esophagus leads to the stomach and the trachea leads to the lungs. The epiglottis is a flap of tissue that covers the trachea opening during swallowing to prevent food from entering the lungs. The esophagus is a tubular organ that connects the mouth to the stomach. The chew and softened food passes through the esophagus after being swallowed. The smooth muscles of the esophagus undergo peristalsis that pushes the food toward the stomach. The peristaltic wave is unidirectional. It moves food from the mouth to the stomach, and reverse movement is not possible, except in the case of the vomit reflex. The peristaltic movement of the esophagus is an involuntary reflex. It takes place in response to the act of swallowing. Ring-like muscles called sphincters form valves in the digestive system. The gastroesophageal sphincter, or cardiac sphincter, is located at the stomach end of the esophagus. In response to swallowing and the pressure exerted by the bolus of food, this sphincter opens and the bolus enters the stomach. When there is no swallowing action, this sphincter is shut and prevents the contents of the stomach from traveling up the esophagus. Acid reflux or heartburn occurs when the acidic digestive juices escape into the esophagus. A large part of protein digestion occurs in the stomach. The stomach is a sac-like organ that secretes gastric digestive juices. Protein digestion is carried out by an enzyme called pepsin in the stomach chamber. The highly acidic environment kills many microorganisms in the food and, combined with the action of the enzyme pepsin, results in the catabolism of protein in the food. Chemical digestion is facilitated by the churning action of the stomach caused by contraction and relaxation of smooth muscles. The partially digested food and gastric juice mixture is called chyme. Gastric emptying occurs within 2 to 6 hours after a meal. Only a small amount of chyme is released into the small intestine at a time. The movement of chyme from the stomach into the small intestine is regulated by hormones, stomach distension, and muscular reflex that influence the pyloric sphincter. The stomach lining is unaffected by pepsin and the acidity because pepsin is released in an inactive form and the stomach has a thick mucus lining that protects the underlying tissue. Chyme moves from the stomach to the small intestine. The small intestine is the organ where the digestion of protein, fats, and carbohydrates is completed. The small intestine is a long tube-like organ with a highly folded surface containing finger-like projections called the villi. The top surface of each villus has many microscopic projections called microvilli. The epithelial cells of these structures absorb nutrients from the digested food and release them to the bloodstream on the other side. The villi and microvilli, with their many folds, increase the surface area of the small intestine and increase absorption efficiency of the nutrients. The human small intestine is over 6 meters long and is divided into 3 parts: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. The duodenum is separated from the stomach by the pyloric sphincter. The chyme is mixed with pancreatic juices, an alkaline solution rich in bicarbonate that neutralizes the acidity of chyme from the stomach. Pancreatic juices contain several digestive enzymes that break down starches, disaccharides, proteins, and fats. Bile is produced in the liver and stored and concentrated in the gallbladder. It enters the duodenum through the bile duct. Bile contains bile salts, which make lipids accessible to the water-soluble enzymes. Monosaccharides, amino acids, bile salts, vitamins, and other nutrients are absorbed by cells of the intestinal lining. The undigested food is sent to the colon from the ileum via peristaltic movements. The ileum ends and the large intestine begins in the ileocecal valve. The vermiform worm-like appendix is located at the ileocecal valve. The appendix of humans has a minor role in immunity.
The large intestine reabsorbs the water from indigestible food material and processes the waste material. The human large intestine is much smaller in length compared to the small intestine, but larger in diameter. It has three parts: the cecum, the colon, and the rectum. The cecum joins the ileum to the colon and is the receiving pouch for the waste matter. The colon is home to many bacteria or intestinal flora that aid in the digestive process. The colon has four regions: the ascending colon, the transverse colon, and the descending colon, and the sigmoid colon. The main functions of the colon are to extract the water and mineral salts from undigested food and to store waste material. The rectum stores feces until defecation. The feces are propelled using peristaltic movements during elimination. The anus is an opening at the far end of the digestive tract and is the exit point for the waste material. Two sphincters regulate the exit of feces. The inner sphincter is involuntary and the outer sphincter is voluntary. The organs previously explained are the organs of the digestive tract through which food passes. Accessory organs add secretions and enzymes that break down the food into nutrients. Accessory organs include the salivary glands, the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. The secretions of the liver, pancreas, and gallbladder are regulated by hormones in response to food consumption. The liver is the largest internal organ in humans, and it plays an important role in digestion of fats and detoxifying blood. The liver produces bile, a digestive juice that is required for the breakdown of fats in the duodenum. The liver also processes the absorbed vitamins and fatty acids and synthesizes many plasma proteins. The gallbladder is a small organ that aids the liver by storing bile and concentrating bile salts. The pancreas secretes bicarbonate that neutralizes the acid chyme and a variety of enzymes for the digestion of protein and carbohydrates. The organic molecules required for building cellular material and tissues must come from food. During digestion, digestible carbohydrates are ultimately broken down into glucose and used to provide energy within the cells of the body. Complex carbohydrates, including polysaccharides, can be broken down into glucose through biochemical modification. However, humans do not produce the enzyme necessary to digest cellulose or fiber. The excess sugars in the body are converted into glycogen and stored for later use in the liver and muscle tissue. Glycogen stores are used to fuel prolonged exertions, such as long-distance running, and to provide energy during food shortage. Proteins in food are broken down during digestion and the resulting amino acids are absorbed. All of the proteins in the body must be formed from these amino acids constituents. No proteins are obtained directly from food. Fats add flavor to food and promote a sense of satiety or fullness. Fatty foods are also significant sources of energy, and fatty acids are required for the construction of lipid membranes. Fats are also required in the diet to aid the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins and the production of fat-soluble hormones. While the animal body can synthesize many of the molecules required for function from precursors, there are some nutrients that must be obtained from food. These nutrients are termed essential nutrients, meaning they must be eaten because the body cannot produce them. The fatty acids omega-3 alpha-linoleic acid and omega-6 linoleic acid are essential fatty acids needed to make some membrane phospholipids. Vitamins are another class of essential organic molecules that are required in small quantities. Many of these assist enzymes in their function and, for this reason, are called coenzymes. Absence or low levels of vitamins can have a dramatic effect on health. Minerals are another set of inorganic essential nutrients that must be obtained from food. Minerals perform many functions, from muscle and nerve function to acting as enzyme cofactors. Certain amino acids also must be produced from food and cannot be synthesized by the body. These amino acids are the essential amino acids. The human body can synthesize only 11 of the 20 required amino acids. The rest must be obtained from food. In summary, there are many organs that work together to digest food and absorb nutrients. The mouth is the point of ingestion and the location where both mechanical and chemical breakdown of food begins. Saliva contains an enzyme called amylase that breaks down carbohydrates. The food bolus travels through the esophagus by peristaltic movement to the stomach. The stomach has an extremely acidic environment. The enzyme pepsin digests protein in the stomach. Further digestion and absorption takes place in the small intestine. The large intestine reabsorbs water from the undigested food and stores waste until elimination. Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are the primary components of food. Some essential nutrients are required for cellular function, but cannot be produced by the animal body. These include vitamins, minerals, some fatty acids, and some amino acids. Food intake in more than necessary amounts is stored as glycogen in the liver and muscle cells, and in adipose tissue. Excess adipose storage can lead to obesity and serious health problems.